finna get your ass the game, man. You know I break it down. Come on, man, you know it's Bain.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to Bain Break It Down Forex. It's your boy Big Bain in this thing, and you guys guessed it. Another week, another opportunity for us to make some money in the Forex market. So let's get right to it. All right, boom, guys. Over on the dollar, you guys can see nice double top. We made the drop right here, broke the neckline, made our retest, and dropped again. All right, so looks like we're reversing, right? If you just look at that up move and now coming down, we're continuing this downtrend structure. All right, so we got our run, our pullback, our run. So I'm expecting some sort of pullback potentially up into this supply zone, right? We're talking about the daily time frame, but intraday. So if we go into like the 2 hour, all right, now we can see way more detail of that supply zone up here from the daily, right? It'll be right up in this area, but then we also have a nice supply zone here on the 2 hour time frame. So basically all that I'm really getting at is that we can see the dollar potentially give us a push up into the supply areas, right? Either the intraday or that daily swing lower high, right, that it created to complete its retracement before it begins its next run phase. All right, so this is like the beginning of the retracement for that previous run that we just had all last week on the dollar. All right, so pretty much, yeah, from that Monday, right, we kind of did a little dancing and then we pushed up, and then from Tuesday all of last week we were just crashing on the dollar, and you guys saw the indices kept rising, right? They did numbers. So now it's time for like a correction, all right, for that move down. Who knows how far or how deep that correction is going to be, or if it'll potentially turn into a reversal. But for now, the dollar does seem like it'll be bullish to where it'll get up to this supply area, then drop, or maybe higher and then drop. We'll just have to wait and see what it will be at that time. All right, guys, so bullish on the dollar. All right, just getting another look. Okay, yeah, coming from a major demand zone as well that took us to new heights, right? We're following that same kind of situation where we can begin that new push up that again may turn into a reversal, but because we're so bearish on the higher time frame, right, looking at that structure again, we could just continue, come up and then continue falling. So it's not until we break above this high is where we'll officially start to continue rising, all right, on that potential reversal. All right, but bullish on the dollar, right? And then later on in the week we may turn bearish, all right, but initially bullish, guys. All right, so look for things that line up with the dollar being bullish. All right, moving over to JPY. All right, looking at this from a higher time frame, again, we also gotten really close to a nice support level. All right, we kind of got midway within it, and now we're starting to get some indications that we're going to rise on the JPY index. So looking at it from a lower time frame, all right, you guys can see major consolidation, broke out of that, made the new low, and then right as we got this push up here, we changed character, right? We changed structure from down to now up. All right, so with that, we're beginning the new pullback phase, all right, again, of this run that we had last week on the JPY. All right, so again, pullback phase is beginning because we had the change of character, we made the new high, and we've retraced into that demand area. So I do expect the JPY to rise as well this week, which will be very interesting to see on the UJ, as the dollar is expected to rise in my opinion, and the JPY is also expected to rise in my opinion. So both of those rising, who's going to take control with the UJ pair? All right, we'll see how that plays out. All right, and we'll get to that pair shortly. All right, but bullish on JPY. All right, over to odd dollar. Pretty simple, guys. I'm bearish as I expect the dollar to be bullish, right? Odd dollar has broken a high, made a new high, created or engineered liquidity. All right, hopefully you guys can see this, and then has started to look or started to respect this, you know, support area, if you will, this demand area. Really, it's not demand because it did not break this high, so it's more of a support area. Okay, but we're making lower highs here. All right, and then we got massive bearish candle pushing down at the end of last week. So all I'm expecting is a little tap into the supply, but then I'm expecting it to go and sweep liquidity and potentially keep falling on the odd dollar for you know, a good drop, right? So there's a major swing here, right, to where we're now potentially making that new swing high to, you know, reverse and come on down. All right, so a lot of money on the table for a selling opportunity. All right, 220 pips to that swing on odd dollar, but we definitely do have to be careful because we're not out of the gate in terms of it being bullish just yet, right? It's still bullish here, even as it retraced to tap into and sweep really the liquidity that was here. It swept that, and as it went higher, it should have broken the highs. It just hasn't done that yet. So in a sense, it's also kind of collecting liquidity in this area. All right, so we can see our dollar push to go get that before a potential drop, but the main thing is that we're not seeing any higher highs being made, and that's the main thing, right? That would give you an indication of a possible trend change or reversal. All right, so a lot of that being said, to say I'm bearish on dollar. All right, moving over to euro dollar. All right, same deal. Right now, again, it's not out of the gate from being bullish. We still have just broken this high, made a new high. So all of this is kind of a demand area sitting here. You'll see it more in detail. There it is on the 15-minute time frame here, right? Where again, I'm just looking at the push up, right? That broke structure or broke this high, and now we're just kind of retracing into that demand area. So we could easily just do a little dance and then keep rising, right? But you know, we'll see how that plays out, because again, the dollar looks pretty bullish. Okay, so if it, you know, if it stays bearish, right, if it doesn't rise higher, then we can obviously see the euro dollar, you know, push up higher. But if the dollar goes bullish, we will definitely see euro dollar fall, because that is the pair that is highly correlated with what the dollar does. Anytime you pull up a dollar chart and you compare it to the euro dollar chart, you see an inverse relationship. So you see the dollar go up, you see euro go down, and vice versa. So I'm telling you to make sure that you don't sleep on euro USD if the dollar is showing you clear market structure in one direction or another. All right, but what I would like to see is euro break below this particular low. That's going to give us our change of character. All right, and from there we'll have a great we'll have more confirmation at that point that we'll most likely get a retracement and then start to, you know, have our way our push down to, you know, this particular swing low that we see here, and that's well over 90 pips, maybe 150 if we, you know, push it to that swing. All right, so with that being said, guys, I'm bearish on euro dollar. I would just like to see price break below this change of character first before, right, we sell it. All right, but even selling it high is not a bad idea. Again, my team did sell it a little prematurely without the confirmation, but that's, you know, the risk that we were willing to take. All right, just a 22 pip stop loss for about a 90 pip take profit. That's almost a 1 to 4. You know, I'll take that any day of the week. All right, bearish on euro dollar. All right, moving over to pound dollar, and pound dollar is a little mix. Again, I can still see it going bullish because it broke a high, made the new high, and all the retracement happened right to a key point of interest. All right, so the thing is, we haven't really, you know, pushing up, we haven't really had a change of character to the upside yet on pound dollar. So because we haven't had that, right, pound dollar is still bearish. So I'm expecting price to basically respect, you know, this particular high or this zone, if you will, right? May push up a little bit, do a little dance, and then continue to fall. All right, definitely, you know, a trade worth taking, as GU typically pays the highest out of the majors. All right, looking at about a good 95 pips out of that potential opportunity. All right, guys, bearish on GU. All right, just looking at it from a higher time frame really quick. Yeah, you see how that looks more bullish than anything, but again, getting down to the lower time frame really tells the story. And then we did have a change of character here, so that is, you know, the things, there it is, right? So we broke that low, made that new low, and we stayed below basically, you know, where we have supply in this particular zone. So again, maybe a little push up higher to just kind of sweep this, tap into this, and then drop, but I'm still expecting pound dollar to fall. All right, bearish on GU. All right, New Zealand dollar, I'm sure somebody guessed it, I'm bearish on this as well. This was my go-to play for my team last week. We got into it early because I see this rising channel, all right, that is formed, and we're starting to have a hard time making higher highs. After this high, right, we came down. Yes, we tapped into demand, so again, we can still continue rising, but looking at it from that lower time frame, and you guys will see that here's where we had this massive bearish candle, right, that started to give us a potential shift, right? We didn't get it quite because we rejected it, but you can see that it has to get above that supply area of, you know, because this push down just kind of broke these lows, right? It didn't break that major, that strong swing low, but it did break these lows. So there's potential of it to respect the supply area and continue dropping. But right now we're still in the mix, and we can still go bullish on New Zealand dollar. But if we happen to get price to do this and then this, breaking this low, which is really the one that we wanted it to break in the beginning when it came down here, but it didn't do that. But if we break below that, that will be your confirmation that we have now shifted from up to down on pound or New Zealand dollar, and then we'll continue to get the drop. And my team, like I mentioned, is already taking this without confirmation because, you know, it's just what it is, right? We can always get back in if we happen to lose trade, but we're aiming for 224 pips. New Zealand dollar is definitely one of the go-to plays next week. Most likely will play out on Tuesday when we have economic news for the dollar, which I think is like PMI or something to that effect. But regardless, definitely one of those days that the market typically moves with volatility, and the chart is already setting up for that potentiality. All right, so bearish on New Zealand dollar. Over to dollar CAD, and again, because I believe that the dollar is going to rise, dollar CAD should also rise. What we can see is a major push down, right, and we finally found a floor or demand area, and you'll see that more in detail on the lower time frame. All right, as we get here, there is again breaking structure, right, making a new low, new higher low or lower high, and then another lower low. But then this massive push up, we broke that high that broke this low. So now we have a change, and prices pull back to that demand area where we created the change, and it is respecting it, giving us a nice bit of a morning star here on this 1 hour time frame on the dollar CAD. So a position just like this with your stop right below the demand area, and then aiming for this swing high, guys, will get you 100 pips on the dot for just 23 pips. All right, and for that, this is another go-to play of the week because I believe the dollar is going to be bullish, right? We're going to buy dollar CAD for about 100 pips, easy money. All right, bullish on dollar CAD. All right, moving over to dollar CHF, same kind of situation, right? Major drop, right? Broke the low, made the new low, starting to retrace, right? So the buying that we're going to be doing, it's not in the direction of the overall trend, right? It is counter trend, meaning we're taking the retracement, we're taking the pullback, which is not ideal, right? You want to trade with the trend, but when you know what you're doing, right, you can take advantage of this potential rise, right, up into a area of supply before it begins to fall again. All right, and with that, you saw what it was on dollar CAD, 100 pips. Here it is also on dollar CHF, about 100 pips that we can get out of that before it drops. All right, maybe it'll get to just this area, right, and then drop, who knows, but chances are we'll get a nice, push up, because we do have imbalance with a unmitigated supply area that sits right here, guys. All right, so bringing that on over, and this is what we expect to see, or at least me, right, on dollar CHF, push up, and there you go, about 90 pips out of that. All right, bullish on dollar CHF. Okay, and moving over to dollar JPY. So again, question mark, right? We broke the high, we made the new high, we retested an area of value. All right, but now as we pushed up, we're failing to just continue to rise and get above this high, but we did what we needed to do in terms of the pullback. So now this is all the run phase that should go and break above this high. But if the JPY is looking bullish and the dollar is looking bullish, then who's going to win this battle? All right, right now it looks like it's respecting the supply area, but it has a little bit of a demand area sitting right here. All right, that it could also respect and start to rise from. All right, so we may get a situation where the dollar just does this and then finally gets up there to take out the high, continuing the run that is is formulated with this. All right, but that's again speculative, okay, because we're in between zones, right? We're in between supply and we're in between demand. So really you kind of want to give it the respect that it deserves, right, with letting it break out first of supply or break out of demand. That way you can know for sure, okay, when we come back, we're most likely headed up, or if we come back, we're most likely headed down, right? That's how that goes, in case you guys never knew, right, how to, try to go about, situations such as this where it's a little mixed. All right, you got to give it time, let it show you what it wants to do, and then try to catch that wave, especially if it's in the direction of the higher time frame trend. All right, so right now mixed on dollar JPY, waiting for it to break demand or break supply before we make that decision. All right, so undecided for now. Moving over to pound odd, also a little undecided, because it's very, very finicky. All right, we did break the low, make the new low, pull back, but now as we're pushing down, it looks like we just kind of had a break or a change from this downward movement to breaking this high. So what may happen is we may get right into this demand area here, okay, and then respect that and start to push up higher. So it's very, very touchy at the moment, but I'll be waiting to see if we at least get to this area and maybe take a buy opportunity from here, catching it to this level of supply for 105 pips on pound odd. All right, so I'll say bullish for now. All right, over to pound CAD. All right, looking at it from a higher time frame. Oh boy. All right, this looks pretty good. All right, as we broke the low, made the new low, started the retracement, but you see we didn't get nowhere near the areas that we could have gotten to. The fair value gap here, all of this imbalance, maybe halfway of this fair value gap we did get to, and then we dropped, but we didn't break the low. Right, we made a higher low, and then we made a equal high, and then we made a lower low. So we're kind of consolidating at the moment, and it's trying to trick people, right? And for the most part, what I believe it's going to do is touch down into this demand area, right, give us a nice double bottom of some sort, right, break that, pull back, and then head right back up to get this supply zone. All right, so with that, you're looking at from demand to supply, 245 pips. All right, so I'm expecting a sweep on pound CAD, and then for pound CAD to take off and get up to the supply area for 245 pips. So I'm bullish. All right, my team caught 153, selling it from the top, and I will catch either that or more buying it from the bottom. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. People get with me if you're trying to get with it. All right, forexwithbain.com, check me out, and let's get rolling. All right, new year, you can get some new money. All right, and new things can happen, but you got to tap in. All right, bullish on dollar CAD, pushing over to dollar CHF. Also a very good setup in terms of a buy. Right, this demand area has not been mitigated, so what I'm expecting is for price to mitigate it. Right, again, give us a bit of a double bottom, something, right, and then start to push right back up to take out this swing high. All right, because we broke the high, made the new high, retraced back to one key point of interest here, but here's one that's very close by. So why wouldn't it want to go and mitigate that and take off? Let's just say it doesn't, right? And then it just takes off from here. Okay, you may miss out on that, right? You know what I mean? But you can still take the trade here and just make sure your stop is below here. That's how you survive, you know, it not retracing to here and just taking off at this point, right? But it's decisions that you got to make. And, you know, knowing how to make those decisions is what, you know, I teach people how to do day in and day out, because I know what it is, right? It's one thing to learn everything, but then how do you apply it, right? And then how do you really understand it to a point where you can apply it to have the best outcome, all right? But yeah, expect a push down on pound, a push down on pound, right? To demand before we get the rise up. I am bullish, and it looks like most of our pound pairs are bullish, if you will. All right. Last but not least, GJ. So, broke the high, made the new high, consolidated. We're still respecting this demand. So even though I think JPY is going to rise, if it falls, the JPY could just have a continuation of going up again, which leads to the pound being strong. But if we break below this consolidation and demand area, we'll definitely probably get a continuation to the downside. All right, so time will tell, but for now, you know, GJ does still look bullish. I won't call it bearish until, like I mentioned, it breaks out of this consolidation to the downside, and then I'll potentially be looking for sells. Another scenario is that we can sweep the buy side liquidity here and then go to get sell side, right, where we can probably, you know, keep getting pushed down to the next point of interest before we maybe get another rise out of GJ. Either way, GJ looks still bullish for now, so I'm going to go with that until I see otherwise. All right, moving over to pound New Zealand. All right, and again, another very good buy setup. All right, so major push up, right, created the trend line over the rising channel, broke that, and then did exactly what it should have done, fell down to demand, right, created a lower high, created a low that got swept, all right, and that demand area got tapped into, and then it consolidated, right? We even got our change of character from down to up, but this here is the retracement to this demand to sweep this low, mitigate this demand, and from there it just consolidated. So what I believe is going to happen is that we're going to get one more push deeper into this demand, because this was very minute, right? Typically we'll get price to get halfway into a demand or supply area before it actually reverses, right? So I'm expecting price to push down, and this has been kind of like the theme on a lot of the pound pairs that I just reviewed. If you guys notice, I'm expecting a little bit of a sweep, and then from there we'll start to make our way up to fill this imbalance, right? And if so, this is going to be a very great risk to reward play, all right, with getting away with, you know, about 30 pips, right, roughly. So boom, there it is, 30. And if we just get up to the area of consolidation, that's 174 pips. But this is pound New Zealand, it does numbers, so we can fill that gap. That's 465 on the table for pound New Zealand, guys. Very, very good setup. All right, you just gotta wait for it to do what it needs to do, and once it shows you its hand, go ahead and take it and you'll be a happy man or woman. All right, bullish on pound New Zealand. All right, moving over to silver. All right, silver finally gave some kind of drop after rising. Okay, and now we're heading to this demand area where we may sweep this equal low that we have here, right? So we may push down again. If the dollar rises, typically silver will fall, but we're in the mix because we did tap the demand, right? So we could start to push up a little bit, right, back to the supply area. So that means the dollar will be falling for a little bit, right, which it could do. And then when the dollar starts to rise, silver could tank. All right, and that will be textbook of this market structure shift that we got from up to down, right? We just had the change, we just made a low, right? So we can go and make that lower high and then continue to make the lower low and so forth and so forth. All right, but right now silver most likely will come out the gate being bullish, right, getting up to that supply area. But once it gets here, you guys better load up and get you a short position like this right above that previous high, aiming to take out these equal highs, or you can even aim for this structure here, which will have liquidity sitting behind it as well. Okay, and then your swing point, I guess, is kind of right here, right? But silver will give a very nice selling opportunity once it gets to the supply area. Just got to be patient, wait it out, and take advantage. All right, bullish then bearish on silver. All right, moving over to gold. All right, same exact thing. Gold finally gave a massive push down. All right, and it did it on Friday, right, of all days, right? Telling you guys and my team that Fridays have been paydays, and they literally have, right, with gold going 89 points in 1 hour. That is bananas. All right, on a Friday. Okay, and since then it's just consolidated and did a little retracement. That's all profit taking, if you ask me. All right, but now because we had the change with that massive bearish candle, right, we even sweep the lows here. We're definitely going to get some retracement back to where we broke, or we had the change, or back into the supply area before we get another selling opportunity. So it'll be a good idea to most likely buy gold out of the gate this week, up until this area or this one, right, which will give you 20 points here, right, or 45 points to supply, and then turn right around and sell it back down to this demand area that has been unmitigated, which again, if the dollar rises, we'll most likely see that fall in gold. So look for that to most likely play out on Tuesday or Wednesday, right? Sunday, Monday, I think we'll get that slow rise up into this area, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is when we'll see the drop on gold. All right, bullish then bearish on gold. Moving over to natural gas, and let's get a little higher. All right, we had a very nice drop. All right, and I did tell you guys we were gonna get that drop, so hopefully you guys take advantage, right? But here we broke the low, made a new low, so we may start to retrace and get back up to any one of these supply areas before dropping. So it's going to be very touchy because we didn't really get a change, right, to the upside yet, so we can't quite be bullish just yet. Right, if we look at it on 15-minute time frame, we can see again structure is still down, so we may just kind of push up to the supply and keep falling. But know that if we break above these highs, right, any of these highs that seem equal to me, all right, and again just another area where liquidity would sit, right? So we may get that push up, but if we break above, then that'll be the indication of where you want to start looking for the buy, right? So it'll be something like this, right? Go ahead and take out the liquidity, break above the high, come back and respect this supply area as demand, and then give you a nice push up breaking above here. With that, that would have created your new higher low. We even would have had a bit of a inverted head and shoulders at that point, right? So then you'll look for, you can take the breakout on the buy, or you can wait for it to dip a little bit and then take the buy here, and you'll see that price will take off and complete that retracement up to, whatever key area it has from the higher time frame on natural gas. All right, so hopefully you guys are following me, but natural gas is still bearish, but if it breaks those highs, I will be bullish on natural gas, and there's a lot to make on natural gas with that happening. But for now, still bearish. All right, pushing over to oil. All right, and as you can see, I'm in a buy on oil. So we broke this low, right? We made the new low, but as we pushed up, we had a change of character. All right, so here's that massive push down, right? But then pushing up, we broke this high that broke this low, so that gave us a change from down to up. And with that, we have our retracement back into that demand area that made the change. So now it's just a matter of time for oil to push out of here and do numbers, guys. I'm definitely expecting a huge play to be made on oil. You can see my take profit is way at the top. That's because from a higher time frame, all right, there is an area, right, that I believe price will get to. There is a major trend line, right, that has liquidity sitting behind it, and we're getting in from a nice low point, right, to where we can eventually sweep that liquidity, right, and get to the target area. All right, 57 to 63. All right, that's about 6 points on oil, I believe, and that is 600 pips on oil. Oil is very inexpensive to get into, but it pays big time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so please try to do yourself a favor and get into oil for a buying opportunity if you see that it lines up with what you believe. All right, over to SPY. All right, and I'm bullish. All right, so we did get a nice drop, right, that Friday. All right, to, I expect from what I see on a technical standpoint for us to continue dropping, but right now we're just at the support area where we could rise as a retracement and then from there have a major drop. So I am expecting, again, Sunday, Monday on these indices for us to get a nice, little push up, right, to get back into the zone that created the massive drop. All right, so taking the buy would be, counter trend, if you will, but the potential of it working out is pretty decent, right? The main play is going to be, once SPY gets up to this area, because again, we do have a bit of equal, highs in this area that it may want to take out from a liquidity standpoint. Right, so we'll get that push all the way up, boom, 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 boom. We'll sweep that, and then all of a sudden we'll start to crash on the indices, and people will be wondering, yo, what's going on in the market? Is this doomsday? What is it? It's too close to Christmas and, the new year and all that, right? So things will start getting a little questionable, and then the panic, kicks in, the fear kicks in, and this bad boy absolutely tanks. All right, don't think it can't happen, because you can see right on the chart, we've already done, 14 days, we went 354 points on SPY, and if I just shorten that for a quick push up here, you can see 321 in 5 days. So that absolutely can happen within a week, where we have, over a 300 point drop on SPY, after we get to the supply zone. So that's what I'll be looking for, right? Maybe a sweep of these equal highs, maybe even a sweep of the actual high and then the drop. Either way, I think it'll be good to buy it, these indices out the gate for, Sunday, Monday. But Tuesday, be careful, because that's where we may get the manipulation up to take us down for the reversal and a huge drop on SPY. All right, so bullish, right, but then bearish when SPY gets to these high points or supply zones. All right, moving over to NAS. All right, so my team sold NAS. Again, I expected the drop, which we did get that Friday, but we have engineered this liquidity and the supply area is still unmitigated. So right now, again, coming out the gate, I believe that this will be a good buying opportunity from the low, right? Last time we were here, we pushed up to this area. So why can't that happen again to where we sweep the liquidity, mitigate the supply, and then get our drop down? Because now we would have engineered liquidity here with these two equal lows, right? It's a dirty game, but once you understand it, you can take advantage. All right, so push up on NAS at first for the buy, you know, Sunday, Monday, and then possibly Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday, Friday is where we'll have that major selling opportunity on NAS. Here's the beauty with that, right? Getting NAS from the top here, all right, down to here, guys. You see it, 2,000 points on NAS. All right, on a micro lot, guys, that is $2,000. Okay, I'll say it again, on a micro lot, that is $2,000. So you can imagine a mini, add a zero to that, right? And then add another zero to a standard lot, and yeah, you can pretty much kiss the baby goodnight. All right, so don't sleep, right, for your selling opportunity with 2,000 points on the table on NAS. All right, bearish on NAS, bullish first, but then bearish when it gets to that zone. Last but not least, US 30, very clean market structure. Again, we sold it because a nice bearish candle, a little premature, right? It did not break any lows, so we don't have any confirmation of it falling. This is still bullish, right? Breaking the high, just retracing a bit to the point of interest where it's, you can see the rejection with the wicks, so we can still potentially rise. So again, as my team sold this, we may, you know, see drawdown as it gets up to the supply area. Hopefully it doesn't break above the high, right? It just gets up to here and then falls, because with that, again, we're looking at, you know, just 1,000 points, roughly, you know, 1,200 points to this low here. But you know, if we do the measurement to the actual swing low, guys, 3,000 points on US 30. It's just insane. All right, but for now, again, it's still bullish, so just be mindful of that. Try to take advantage of that. But if you start seeing rejection, you know, on the lower time frame, right at this supply area, right, and you get a nice bearish candle, guys, that is a trade you want to take, because it will yield you probably the most money you've ever made trading the indices or, you know, Forex. But watch out for the equal highs being swept, and if you do that, I believe that you will be A-OK. All right, so that'll do it, guys. Really hope you guys paying attention, because I laced you up pretty nicely. It's just for you to, you know, wake up, get to it, and take advantage. All right, meantime, in between time, y'all know what it is. It's your boy. Peace.
Wanna get money? Wanna get paid? That's Forex. Like a sensei, then you know you gotta come and swing my way. And if you wanna fast forward, hit replay.